Chapter 8. The Other Monsters. The convoy was a living, breathing entity, a river of steel and diesel flowing south through the corpse of the world. We'd left the open fields around the green farm behind, the massive column of vehicles chewing up miles of cracked asphalt. The hope of the prison was a tangible current pulling us forward, a shared dream of walls and safety. We were a single organism, 100+ hearts beating in time with the rumble of engines, a fragile testament to defiance. Then, just as we were about to pass by Senoia's outskirts, something caught our scouts' attentions. It was Dean's voice over the CB, stripped of all its usual lazy bravado and sharpened into a blade of cold fury that shattered the hope and filled the vacuum with ice. "Convoy, halt! Hold position. We've got a situation. Off the road to the left, about 200 yards. Do not, I repeat, do not let the others see this. I mean it. Keep the kids' eyes forward." The great metal snake shuddered to a stop, the idling rumble of 35 engines now a dissonant choir of anxiety. My hand was already on the hatch release. "Andrea, get on the turret. Amy, keep the channel clear, and if anyone so much as whispers a question, you tell them to stand by." Andrea and Amy moved. I gave Carol and Sophia a reassuring smile, then got out. I dropped out of the beast. Up ahead, I saw Dean, Darrell, Shane, and Merle already moving, peeling away from the lead vehicles like wolves catching a blood scent. Their expressions were no longer human. They were masks of grim, predatory intent, locked on to something in the trees off the roadside. The change in them was instantaneous and absolute.
The smell hit me even from 50 yards away, carried on a faint breeze. It was a foul cocktail that overpowered the scent of thyme and diesel. Coppery blood, the stink of voided bowels, and the cloying, sweet smell of recent, brutal death. Tom Chandler, Mike Slattery, and a handful of others, Sasha Cooper, Ravit Bivas, Wolf Taylor, Carlton Burke, Danny Green, and Tex Nolan, also emerged from their vehicles, confusion marring their faces. They fell in behind me, a silent, grim-faced delegation, drawn by what had got Dean and the others' attention. We crested a small rise, and the picnic area came into view. It was a slaughterhouse, staged in a place of peace. A single, naked body was tied spread-eagled to a splintered picnic table, a woman. What they'd done to her was a masterpiece of suffering, a canvas of brutality, so vile it made the others behind me gasp and splutter in shock. She had been used, broken, and discarded. Tools of their trade, a blood-caked knife, a length of rusted pipe, coarse ropes, lay discarded in the dirt around her, soaked in the evidence of their sport. And they were still here, the ones responsible for her torture and death. 6 of them, laughing, passing a bottle of cheap whiskey like they were at a tailgate party. One was zipping up his pants, another was casually rifling through a discarded backpack, pulling out a can of beans. They were animals, basking in the afterglow of their atrocity. These were the men from the motel. The ghosts of the girl in the room had manifested into these laughing, soulless things. Time didn't just slow, it fractured. The world narrowed to this patch of blood-soaked earth. Dean's face was a pale, cold mask of homicidal fury. Darrell's knuckles were bone-white on his crossbow, a low, continuous growl rumbling in his chest like an angry bear. Shane's breathing was ragged, his eyes wide with a nightmarish recognition. This was the horror he'd always known was waiting in the world's dark corners. Merle just smiled, a thin, cruel, and utterly joyful thing, like a kid who'd just found the one present he'd always wanted. The 6 men finally noticed us. Their laughter died in their throats. They scrambled for their weapons, a mix of scoped hunting rifles, machetes, and a single sawed-off shotgun. Their leader, a big man with a filthy beard and eyes as dead as a shark's, sneered, raising his rifle. "Well, look what we got here.
More volunteers for the party? We're all out of beer, but we got plenty of—" He never got to finish the invitation. The silence shattered into a symphony of righteous violence. It wasn't a gunfight, it was an execution, a purge. A single suppressed thwip from Darrell's crossbow. The bolt took the leader square in the throat, punching through his vocal cords and spine with a wet crunch. The sneer froze on his face as he dropped, a puppet with its strings cut, gurgling silently in the dirt. The world exploded. Dean's modified .45 roared twice, two sharp, deafening cracks that echoed like thunderclaps. Two men jerked and spun as if hit by trucks, their chests exploding in clouds of red mist before they could even shoulder their weapons. Shane fired a shotgun from the hip, the massive boom deafening at close range. The blast caught one man in the stomach and lower chest, nearly cutting him in half and painting the trees behind him. Shane didn't stop. He used the smoking shotgun as a club, reversing it and smashing the stock into the man with the backpack. The sound of breaking bone and cartilage was sickeningly loud. The man dropped, his face a ruined mess.
Merle closed the distance with startling speed, his knife flashing in the dappled light. A quick, brutal stab to the kidney that made his target gasp and fold. A reverse grip slash that opened another man's arm to the bone, tendon and muscle parting like wet paper. A final, vicious thrust under the chin, the point punching up into the brain. He was laughing the whole time, a low, chilling sound of genuine pleasure. I moved. My sword was in my hand, a whisper of sharpened steel leaving its scabbard. It felt like an extension of my will. The last man, a scrawny kid who couldn't have been older than 20, raised a machete with trembling hands. He was sobbing, babbling. "Please, no, we was just having fun. She was all ready." I didn't hear the rest. There were no words for this, no negotiations, no mercy, no quarter for this kind of evil. In that moment, I wasn't a leader or a survivor. I was judgment. I flowed inside his clumsy, terrified swing. My blade licked out once, a single perfectly horizontal cut. His head toppled from his shoulders and hit the ground with a soft, dull thud. His body stood for a surreal second, then crumpled like a sack of meat. Silence. It was over in less than 10 seconds. 6 men, 6 corpses. The stink of cordite and fresh blood now overlay the older stench of their crime. The 5 of us stood amidst the carnage, breathing heavily, the adrenaline singing in our veins. The only sounds were the buzzing of flies finding the new feast and the crackle of the still idling convoy in the distance. Dean walked over to the picnic table. His face was hard, but his hands were gentle. He took off his leather jacket and carefully, reverently, laid it over the ruined remains of the woman, covering her dignity. He stood there for a single silent moment, his head bowed. Shane was still trembling, his knuckles raw and bloody, his chest heaving. The red haze was slowly leaving his eyes, replaced by a hollow, shell-shocked emptiness. He'd met the monster and found a part of it in himself. Merle wiped his knife clean on a dead man's shirt. Heh, that was almost too easy. Pricks didn't even put up a fight, like shooting rats in a barrel.
Darrell silently and methodically retrieved his bolt from the leader's neck with a wet, sucking pull. It was only then that I turned to face our audience. The group from the Nathan James stood frozen, a tableau of shock and dawning comprehension. They had seen the monster up close, and they had seen the kind of absolute, ruthless violence required to exterminate it. Sasha Cooper, the CIA operative, looked pale, but her eyes were analytical, cataloging the scene, the efficiency of the kills, the lack of hesitation. Ravit Bewis's expression was unreadable, but her eyes were fixed on me, a new, intense assessment in their depths. Wolf Taylor had a look of grim approval, his jaw clenched, and he gave us grateful nods. Lieutenant Burke looked like he might be sick, his hand over his mouth. Tex Nolan's face was a storm cloud of fury, his hand resting on the butt of his pistol. Mike Slattery looked from the bodies to us, his expression a complex mix of horror and a soldier's understanding of necessary evil. Danny Green just looked young and horrified, all the color drained from his face. Captain Tom Chandler's face was a granite mask. He finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "My God." "No God here, Captain," I said, my voice flat, empty of everything but cold fact. "Not anymore. Just them and us." "Who were they?" Sasha asked, her voice professional, though it wavered slightly. "The reason we don't take chances with strangers," Shane rasped, not looking at her, still staring at his bloody hands. "We found a girl," Darrell grunted, finally looking up from wiping his bolt. "Back at a motel, like this, said they took their time with her before they killed her. These were the same shits." A wave of understanding and revulsion passed over the group's faces. The random act of violence had just become a pattern, a hunting party.
"You just executed them," Carlton Burke said, his voice trembling with a mixture of revulsion and awe. "We judged them," I corrected him, my tone leaving no room for debate. The evidence was irrefutable. We already decided to kill them if we ran into them in the future. We just kept our word. Ravit Bivas finally spoke, her voice cool and analytical, though her eyes were locked on the headless corpse. "The efficiency is notable. No wasted movement, no prolonged engagement, a clinical removal of a threat. It is impressive." Wolf Taylor grunted. "Animals need to be put down. Good job." Mike Slattery looked at Chandler, a silent conversation passing between them. The military men were grappling with the breach of every code of conduct they'd ever known, but they couldn't argue with the brutal math of it. "Burn the bodies," I said, my voice cutting through their moral quagmire. "And hers. We're not leaving her here with them. We purify this ground." We did it quickly, using gasoline from one of the trucks. We stood back as the pyre roared to life, the flames hungrily consuming the evil and the victim alike, the intense heat washing over us, trying to sear the memory from our retinas. As the black, oily smoke coiled into the twilight sky like a damned soul, I keyed my mic. My voice was steady, betraying none of the cold fury still burning in my veins. "Convoy, move out. The road is clear." We climbed back into our vehicles. The great metal snake began to move again, rolling slowly past the column of black smoke that marked the grave of monsters. The families in the buses and RVs would only see the smoke, a mystery on the roadside. They would never know the cost of the clear road.
An hour later, the column of steel and sorrow rolled on, leaving the pillar of black smoke to stain the horizon behind us. The mood in the beast was thick and heavy, the memory of the roadside slaughterhouse a ghost haunting the space between us. Andrea's hands were tight on the wheel, her knuckles white. Amy stared blankly at the radio, and in the back, Carol held a sleeping Sophia, her face a mask of grim endurance. The cost of our passage had been paid in blood, and the receipt was burned into our minds. I was listening to Sasha Cooper tell a story about getting lost in the Moscow metro over the CB when I saw it. Up ahead, the lead vehicles, Chandler's Humvee and Darrell's rig, had slowed. Then they stopped. The game died on the air, the cheerful chatter cutting off as everyone's focus snapped back to the road. My hand went to the mic. "Scout 1, home plate. What's going on? Over." No immediate answer. I could see figures getting out of the lead vehicles up ahead. Darrell, Chandler, Slattery. They were standing in the road, looking at something. Then Darrell's voice came over the radio. It was low, tense, all traces of the recent game gone. "Hadrian, you gotta see this. Everybody hold position. Keep engines running." The mood in the beast plummeted from lighthearted to lethal in a heartbeat. Andrea killed the engine. The sudden silence was oppressive. I popped the hatch and climbed out, my sword a comfortable weight on my back. Amy and Andrea followed me. We moved up the line of idling vehicles, past curious and worried faces in windows. We reached the front. Darrell, Chandler, and Slattery were standing there, staring at the road ahead. It wasn't a horde. It wasn't a roadblock. It was a message. The body of a walker was nailed to a massive oak tree on the side of the road. It wasn't just nailed, it was arranged. Its arms were spread wide, almost in a parody of welcome. Around its neck hung a crudely painted sign, the letters dripped in what looked like old blood. "Welcome to Senoia. Keep going. You're getting closer." But it was the weapon that made my blood run cold. Impaled through the walker's chest, pinning it to the tree, was a military-grade M72 Law rocket launcher. It was spent, the tube empty, a symbol of overwhelming, wasted firepower. This wasn't the work of desperate scavengers or feral rapists. This was different. This was calculated, theatrical. It was a performance, and it was meant for us. Darrell spat on the asphalt. "The hell is this?" Chandler's face was grim. A warning, a show of force. "But who?" Slattery started, his hand resting on his sidearm. I didn't answer. My eyes were fixed on the sign, on the spent rocket launcher. The games were over. The laughter was a memory. Suddenly, from the tree line, my shotgun flared to life without conscious thought. The world sharpened into crystalline clarity, edges defined, energy flows visible. I felt it then, a cold, ruthless, and ancient bloodlust directed at us, a predatory focus that made the hair on my neck stand on end. My dojutsu saw something move in a blur, a flash of pale skin and glowing, angry red eyes deep within the shadows of the pines. My hand moved faster than thought. I drew a kunai from my thigh pouch, its wire already coiled and ready. I channeled a burst of chakra into the throw, enhancing its speed and force. The blade became a silver streak, whistling through the air and finding its mark in the trees with a solid thunk. A scream of pain, high-pitched, furious, and utterly inhuman, echoed from the tree line. It wasn't the groan of a walker. It was the sound of a predator in agony. I didn't hesitate. I yanked hard on the wire, using it to reel my catch in. "Contact!" Chandler barked, keying his own CB. "All gunners alert! Unknown hostiles! Tree line!" Weapons were raised. Safeties clicked off. A chorus of lethal preparation. Slattery, Chandler, and the others had their rifles shouldered, scanning the woods. But I kept pulling. The thing on the other end was fighting back, and its strength was immense, far beyond any humans. My boots slid slightly on the asphalt. I channeled chakra into my legs and core, anchoring myself, and pulled again, the wire cutting into my gloved hand. With a final, furious yank, I hauled our assailant out of the shadows and into the sunlight at the road's edge.
It was a teenage boy, or looked like one, dressed in ripped jeans and a faded band t-shirt, but its face was contorted in a snarl of pain and rage, revealing elongated needle-sharp fangs. Where my kunai had pierced its shoulder, dark blood welled, and where the afternoon sun touched its skin, it sizzled and smoked, thin tendrils of vapor rising as the flesh blackened and blistered. The creature wailed in agony, a horrific sound that was part scream, part hiss. Dean pushed his way to the front, his own playful demeanor gone, replaced by the grim countenance of a seasoned hunter. He took one look at the writhing, smoking figure, and his face hardened with recognition and deep-seated hatred. "A frickin' vampire," Dean announced, his voice flat and cold, cutting through the stunned silence. He walked forward, ignoring the guns trained on the creature. Sunlight allergy? Check. Fangs? Check. Super strength? Check. We just won the supernatural bingo. Before anyone could process this, Dean delivered a brutal, perfectly aimed stomp to the side of the creature's head. There was a sickening crack, and the vampire went limp, unconscious. Its skin continued to smoke and blister under the relentless Georgia sun. Everyone present stood in shocked silence, staring at the unconscious thing. A vampire, a myth, a storybook monster, was now lying smoldering on the asphalt in front of us. Dean keyed his CB. "Bobby, Rufus, get your asses up here, now, and bring the vampire kit." "Yeah, you heard me." The radio was silent for a beat, then burst into a chaotic wave of questions that Dean ignored. A minute later, Bobby, Rufus, Ellen, Sam, and Joe came running. Bobby was carrying a heavy, antique wooden trunk covered in strange, painted symbols that seemed to pulse with a faint, protective energy. Rufus had a sawed-off shotgun held low, his eyes scanning the trees for more threats. "Wait, what in the name of God is going on?" Mike Slattery demanded, his voice strained. He, Tom Chandler, Dr. Rachel Scott, and Sasha Cooper formed a stunned semicircle around us, their military training failing to compute the scene. Dean said vampire, Merle said with a gruff, nonchalant shrug, though his eyes were wide with a strange mix of fear and excitement. "So I'm guessing the dead freaks ain't the only game in town no more. Evolving or some shit." "Vampire?" Rachel Scott breathed, her scientific curiosity instantly overriding her fear. She took a step closer, her eyes wide behind her glasses, fascinated by the biological impossibility sizzling before her. "That's biologically impossible. Its cellular structure must be—" "Save the lecture, Doc," Bobby grumbled, setting the trunk down with a thud. He popped the latches. Inside, nestled in custom-fit foam, was an array of terrifying tools. Wooden stakes tipped with silver, vials of clear liquid, a heavy silver knife, and a compact, wicked-looking saw. First lesson, they're real. Second lesson, they're bastards. "How do you kill it?" Chandler asked, his voice all business, though his face was pale. "Decapitation," Sam answered, ticking points off on his fingers. "Staking through the heart. Wooden has to be. Fire works pretty good. Sunlight, as you can see, is a weakness. They're strong, fast, and most can mess with your head, make you see things, do things you don't want to do. Compulsion, they call it. Healing," I added, my voice cutting through the list of weaknesses. All eyes turned to me. "Dean, tell them about the blood." Dean nodded grimly. "Right, their blood. It's like supercharged adrenaline mixed with a miracle cure. A few drops can heal a human from just about any injury short of death. A broken bone, fixed in minutes. A gunshot wound, closed up in an hour. It can even cure diseases, infections, maybe even the common cold." The implications hung in the air, thick and heavy. In a world of rot and death, a universal healing agent was more valuable than all the gold and oil left on the planet. Rachel Scott's eyes went wide with dawning, earth-shattering comprehension. "A panacea? Their blood is a universal curative? My God, the implications for medical science, for the fight against the virus." She looked from the vampire to Dr. Jenner and Dr. Quincy, who had just arrived, their faces a mirror of her own stunned fascination. "Their regenerative biology could be the key. It could be the catalyst we need to engineer a cure." "Exactly," I said, my voice firm, leaving no room for argument, "which is why we're not killing it. Not yet." A chorus of objections erupted, led by Shane and Slattery. "The hell we're not!" Shane roared. "It's dangerous." "It's a resource," I countered, my tone cold and pragmatic, one we cannot afford to waste. We contain it. We study it. Its blood alone could save countless lives in our group. Its very existence could provide the missing piece for our doctors to end this plague. This isn't about mercy. It's about strategy." I looked at Bobby and Rufus. "Can you contain it?" Bobby looked at the smoking vampire, then at the warded trunk, then at a heavier reinforced metal lockbox in the bed of his truck, also covered in etched symbols. "Aye," he grunted. "We can. Gotta keep it out of the sun. Gotta make sure it can't talk its way out. The box is lined with silver and warded against its mind tricks. It won't be happy, but it'll hold." "Do it,"
I ordered. With practiced efficiency, Bobby and Rufus, wearing thick leather gloves, manhandled the unconscious vampire into the heavy metal box. It was a tight fit. As they slammed the lid shut and threw multiple heavy locks, a weak, furious pounding started from within, accompanied by a muffled hissing shriek. The sound sent a chill through everyone present. The existence of this creature stays within this circle, I said, sweeping my gaze over everyone, the hunters, the military leaders, the doctors. No one else needs to know. Not yet. The last thing we need is a panic or people trying to get their hands on miracle blood. This stays between us leaders. Understood? Nods all around, faces grim but resolved. The secret was kept. Dr. Jenner, Doc Quincy, and Dr. Scott immediately descended on Dean, Bobby, and Rufus, a torrent of questions about biology, weaknesses, origins, and lore. The hunters found themselves reluctantly becoming teachers to a captivated audience of scientists. I left them to it, turning back to the road. The grotesque welcome sign still hung on the tree. The message was clear. Senoia was claimed territory, and now we knew by what. "Mount up!" I shouted, my voice carrying down the line of vehicles. "We're moving! Now! Stay sharp!" We had a new, terrifying variable. The world had just gotten a lot bigger and a lot more dangerous. We weren't just fighting the dead anymore. "Sure about this?" Joe asked as she separated from the others and came over. "We'll need its blood, Joe," I replied with a smile. "Now go mount up." Joe nodded, then gave me a quick peck on the lips and ran towards her and her mom's MRAP. The road to the prison was paved with horrors, and we had just added a new, ancient one to the collection. The games were over. The real war was just beginning. The heavy metal door of the beast hissed shut behind me, sealing off the world of vampires, burning bodies, and cryptic warnings nailed to trees. Inside, the air was thick with the lingering scent of gun oil, stale coffee, and the faint, clean smell of Amy's lavender soap. It was a fragile pocket of normalcy in the escalating madness. Andrea was in the driver's seat, meticulously checking the weapon systems on the console. Amy was kneeling beside Carol and Sophia, who were huddled together on a reinforced bench seat, Sophia sketching nervously in a worn notebook. I walked over, the weight of the kunai still a solid pressure in my thigh pouch, the image of the smoking vampire seared behind my eyes. Joe's knowing look from outside the pickup truck lingered in my mind. She'd seen the trunk, understood the implications without needing words. She'd given me a sharp nod of understanding before heading back to her MRAP, a silent promise to keep the secret. "Hey," Amy said softly, looking up. Her electric blue eyes searched my face, immediately picking up on the tension coiling in my shoulders. "Everything okay? You look intense, more than usual." Andrea turned from the console, her sharp gaze mirroring Amy's concern. Carol stopped murmuring reassurances to Sophia, her own expression wary. Sophia looked up, her pencil frozen over the page. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to meet their eyes. The secret felt like a physical weight, a toxic secret that could shatter the fragile sense of security we'd built. But they were my core. They deserved the truth, especially now. They needed to understand the new shape of the world we were fighting for.
"No," I said, my voice low and serious, cutting through the low hum of the idling engine outside. "Everything's not okay. We found something else out there. Something new." I knelt down in front of Sophia, putting myself at her level, then glanced at the others. "What I'm about to tell you, it stays in this vehicle, for now. It's dangerous knowledge, and I don't want panic spreading through the convoy, especially not to the kids." Carol pulled Sophia closer instinctively. Andrea and Amy exchanged a worried glance, but nodded solemnly. "Okay," Amy breathed. "What is it?" I looked at Sophia, her wide, trusting eyes fixed on me. I needed to be careful, but sugarcoating it would be a disservice. "Remember how we talked about the dead people, the walkers, how they're dangerous, but we understand them? We know how they move, how to stop them?
Sophia nodded vigorously. Shoot him in the head, or stab him. Exactly. Good girl. I managed a small smile. Well, it turns out the walkers aren't the only monsters out there. There's something else, something different. Carol's hand tightened on Sophia's shoulder. Different how? Andrea asked, her voice tight. I took another breath, the image of the smoking, fanged creature flashing in my mind. They look like people, mostly, but they're not. They're vampires. The word hung in the air, absurd and terrifying. Sophia's eyes widened. Like in movies, with capes and turning into bats? A little, I said, choosing my words carefully. No capes, no bats, not that we know of, but they have fangs, sharp teeth, and they're strong, much stronger than a person, stronger than even a big walker. I demonstrated by flexing my own arm, showing the definition. Stronger than me, even, if I wasn't careful. And they drink blood? Asked Amy, her scientific curiosity warring with revulsion. Yes, I confirmed. That's how they live. That's why they're called vampires. But that's not the worst part, or the strangest.
I looked at each of them, making sure they understood the gravity. The sun, it hurts them, badly, like fire. That's how we caught the one we found. It came out of the trees and the sunlight started burning it up. Dean, he stopped it. Dean? Andrea echoed. He knows about these? Bobby, Ellen, Sam, Jess, Ash, and Rufus too, I nodded. They've dealt with them before, a long time ago. They know how to fight them, how to kill them. I deliberately avoided mentioning the blood's healing properties. That was a secret for the innermost circle, the leaders and the doctors. The potential for greed or panic was too high. How do you kill them? Carol asked, her voice trembling slightly, but resolute. She was thinking of Sophia, of protecting her. Destroy the brain, like a walker, or cut off the head. Fireworks, too. And a wooden stake through the heart. That's the surest way, apparently. I saw the skepticism flicker in Andrea's eyes. I know it sounds crazy, like something from a story, but we saw it. We have one, contained. You have one? Amy gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. It's locked up tight, I assured them quickly, in a special box. Bobby and Rufus made sure it can't get out or hurt anyone. We're keeping it for now, to learn from it, to understand this new threat. Sophia was silent, her face pale but thoughtful. She looked down at her sketchbook, then back at me. Are there lots of them? We don't know, Soph, I said honestly. That's the scary part. We only just found out they exist. But the one we found, it left a message. It knew we were coming. It was waiting for us. So, yes, there are more, and they know we're here. The implications settled over them like a shroud. The dead were bad enough, an organized, intelligent, super-strong predator that actively hunted them. It was a new level of terror.
Carol hugged Sophia tightly. So, what do we do? We keep going, I said, my voice hardening with resolve. We get to the prison, we build those walls, we make ourselves strong. We learn everything we can about these vampires, and we fight. We fight the dead, and we fight the other monsters. We protect each other. That's what we do. Always. I looked at Sophia. You remember what I taught you? The pressure points? How to run? How to hide? She nodded, her small chin set with determination. Uh-huh. Good. That's more important than ever now. You stay close. You listen to your mom, to Amy, to Andrea. You do exactly what they say, okay? Okay, Hadrian, she whispered. I stood up, meeting Andrea and Amy's eyes. They looked shaken, but resolute. The fear was there, but so was the steely core that had kept them alive this long. Amy gave me a small, encouraging nod. Andrea's gaze was sharp, analytical, already processing the tactical implications. We tell Joan later? Amy asked quietly. No need, I confirmed. She knew about them before the world ended. It'll be better if she tells you what she did before the world ended. But for now, we keep this circle tight. The convoy moves out soon. We focus on the prison. Andrea turned back to the console, her movements precise. Understood. Weapons hot, eyes peeled for anything unusual. Exactly, I said, moving to the commander's seat beside her. I strapped in, the familiar weight of the harness a small comfort. Let's get to our fortress. We've got a lot of new walls to build. The beast's engine rumbled to life, a deep, powerful vibration that resonated through the steel floor. Outside, the immense convoy began to stir, a metallic beast stretching after its brief, tense pause. The air crackled over the CB as orders were relayed, positions confirmed. The grim discovery at Senoia's edge had injected a shot of pure adrenaline into the already tense atmosphere. The playful distraction of the car games felt like a memory from another lifetime.
Convoy, this is home plate. Andrea's voice, crisp and professional, replaced the earlier chatter over the general channel. We're moving out. Maintain formation. Scout 1 and 2, maintain visual and advance recon. All units stay frosty. We have unknown hostiles in the area. Repeat, unknown hostiles. Eyes open, weapons ready. Home plate out. The great column began to roll. Dean's Impala and Darrell's Humvee surged ahead, sleek predators scouting the path. Chandler's lead Humvee followed closely, a symbol of the newly forged alliance. Behind them, the armored core of MRAPs, APCs, and Humvees formed a protective shell around the vulnerable heart of the convoy, the buses carrying the elderly and children, the Green family's livestock vehicles bleeding and clucking in their makeshift pens, and the cargo trucks laden with the supplies and hopes of over 100 souls. Inside the beast, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken dread. Carol kept Sophia close, murmuring quiet reassurances as the girl stared out the armored window, her sketchbook forgotten. Amy manned the radio with intense focus, monitoring multiple channels, her knuckles white. Andrea drove with grim concentration, her eyes constantly scanning the road ahead and the flanking woods through the vision blocks. I sat beside her, my shin gun inactive, but my senses straining, feeling the weight of the vampire in its box somewhere behind us, a ticking bomb of supernatural fury. The landscape rolled by, abandoned suburbs giving way to scrubland and then denser forest. The road was relatively clear, but every overpass, every cluster of trees, every abandoned vehicle felt like a potential ambush point now. The knowledge that intelligent, organized predators were actively aware of us, possibly hunting us, changed everything. The walkers were a force of nature, mindless and predictable in their hunger. Vampires were something else entirely, cunning, malevolent, and unknown. We passed the time in tense silence, broken only by the crackle of the radio and the low thrum of the engine. Andrea and Amy occasionally exchanged glances, a silent communication of shared fear and resolve. Carol hummed softly to Sophia, a fragile shield against the encroaching darkness. Hours bled into one another. The sun began its descent, casting long skeletal shadows across the road. The light turned golden, then orange, then a deep bloody red as it dipped towards the horizon. The convoy pressed on, headlights cutting swaths through the gathering twilight. Finally, Dean's voice crackled over the secure command channel, laced with a mix of awe and grim anticipation. Home plate, Scout 1, we have visual. Target acquired. I repeat, we have visual on the prison. It's big. Copy that, Scout 1. Describe. Massive, like seriously massive. High concrete walls, multiple fences, Gower towers. But, he trailed off, and Darrell's gruff voice took over. But it's crawling. Whole damn perimeter is thick with 'em. Walkers, pressing against the outer fence like ants on spilled soda. Must be in the low 80s. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. This was it, the sanctuary. but one already occupied. "Convoy, halt," I ordered over the general channel, my voice amplified by the chakra. "Hold position. Darrell, Dean, Merle, Shane, scout the place. Report full assessment. Everyone else maintain defensive posture. Weapons ready, eyes open." The great metal snake shuddered to a halt once more, the idling engines a low, menacing growl in the twilight. Dean, Darrell, and a small team, including Shane, Glenn, and Wolf Taylor, moved forward cautiously, using the fading light and the cover of trees to approach the prison's outer perimeter. Inside the beast, we waited. The silence was broken only by the distant, moaning chorus carried on the wind, a sound that had become the soundtrack to our lives, but now amplified to a terrifying scale. Sophia shivered, pressing closer to Carol. Amy's hand rested on her pistol grip. Andrea's knuckles were white on the steering yoke. Minutes stretched like hours. Then Dean's voice returned, tight with tension. "Home plate, Scout 1. We got at least 85 walkers. The fences are fine. Haven't been able to scout the back, though. But so far, what we see is what we get." "Inner fence?" I asked. "Still intact," Darrell reported, "for now. But the yard between the fences is packed solid. No way through there on foot without drawing every single one of them. Guard towers are empty, good to use as sniping nests and wipe this lot out. The catwalks are free as well. We could just make our way in, climb up, form a line, and spray the dead geeks." "Main gate?" Andrea queried. "Pretty solid. There's a mess up front in the car park, though," Dean said. "Looks like buses, cars, shipping containers, pile high, reinforced with steel cable. Someone might have made a last stand here and lost." "Any sign of living survivors?" I asked, though I feared I knew the answer. "Negative," Darrell grunted. "No movement inside the yard that ain't dead. No lights, no signs of life. Place looks dead, except for the walkers." Chandler's voice cut in, calm and authoritative. "Home plate, Nathan James actual. We have eyes on via binoculars from our position. It's manageable. With our numbers and superior firepower, I reckon if we attack tomorrow first light, we can clean this place out by midday." I keyed the mic, my voice steady despite the lead weight in my gut. "Understood. Everyone, we hold position here for the night. Establish a defensive perimeter. Double watches. We attack at first light. Home plate out." The order was relayed. The convoy, a town on wheels, settled into a wary defensive ring in the gathering darkness. Vehicles were positioned to create overlapping fields of fire. Lookouts took to the roofs and turrets, night vision goggles scanning the woods and the road back towards Senoia. The Green family's livestock was herded into the center of the formation, the animals sensing the tension and bleating softly. Inside the beast, the atmosphere was thick with exhaustion and dread. The long day's horrors, the roadside slaughter, the vampire, the prison's besieged state had taken their toll. Carol managed to get Sophia to drink some water and eat a little ration bar before the girl finally curled up on the bench seat, asleep almost instantly, her small body curled defensively. Amy, Andrea, and Joe, who had come over, all curled up beside me, and we all turned in for the night. The lookout rotation was already taken care of by Rick and Tom Chandler, so without much worry, our steel tamp rested up. Tomorrow would define how we lived in this world.